now we'll look at where markets ended the week, where we saw more record highs as President Trump secured a flurry of trade deals. We saw a slew of mixed earnings, and investors are awaiting a Federal Reserve decision on interest rates coming up this coming Wednesday. As President Trump clashed with Jay Powell while touring the $2.5 billion renovation project at the Federal Reserve on Thursday, once again pushing the chairman to cut interest rates. Watch.
As good as we're doing, we'd do better if we had lower interest rates. And we should. Without us, everything collapses. We should have the lowest interest rate. I believe that the chairman is going to do the right thing. I mean, it may be a little too late, as the expression goes, but I believe he's going to do the right thing.
Joining me now is the Committee to Unleash Prosperity co-founder, Steve Moore. Steve, great to see you. That video of President Trump and Chairman Jay Powell was just hilarious, watching them in their hard hats and watching President Trump tell Powell that there are overruns. He had notes on a piece of paper that he took out of his pocket, gave to Powell, saying, oh, no, the cost is $3.1 billion, that Powell refuted. What was your takeaway from this?
Well, it reminded all of us, didn't it, Maria, that the one thing Donald Trump knows more than just about anybody about is construction projects, because he did so many of those in building hotels and resorts. And, he is an expert at this. And he went through practically the whole building and pointed out things they were doing wrong in the construction. But, look, it may not seem like a significant story, but this is the kind of thing, Maria, that Americans hate about the swamp in Washington, that we spend money like it's M&Ms and candy. And this is a $2.5 billion, and now I think the price tag has been inflated to $3 billion. There's plenty of office space in Washington, D.C. This is outrageous. It should cost a few million dollars, not a few billion. But Trump is right that this is the kind of expenditure that happens all the time in Washington, and it's what makes that town so fat and happy. And Jerome Powell should be held accountable.
Yeah. So what do you think happens next week at the Fed meeting? Will we see a move in rates, or do you think the Fed will cut rates in September? President Trump said he thinks Powell ultimately will do the right thing.
Jerome Powell and Donald Trump do not have a friendly relationship, that's for sure. And when you look at the history of what Powell does, and I believe he's been an incredibly overrated Fed chairman. After all, he is the chairman who almost threw the economy into a recession in Trump's first term by being very, very tight when he should have been lower in rates. And then under Biden, let's not forget that he was the Fed chairman who gave us the highest inflation rate in 30 years, and he should be held accountable for that. He has to explain why it is, Maria, that he was cutting interest rates in the months before the election, maybe because he wanted Kamala Harris to win that election, but inflation was still pretty high back then. Now inflation is lower than it was back then, Maria, but he won't lower rates, and that deserves an explanation. What he will do, I can't predict, because common sense suggests that a rate cut probably is needed right now.
All right. So what will that mean for the economy? I mean, look, let's talk about Trump's economic wins, Steve. Not only are his trade deals bringing in hundreds of billions of new revenue, now he's got this push for artificial intelligence dominance, and it's triggering a private sector investment boom. Alphabet reiterated that it's going to spend more than $85 billion on new projects this year. You had Goldman Sachs this week nearly doubling its 2026 forecast, projecting that together Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta will pour a combined $405 billion into AI infrastructure and cloud investments.
This is a great story. And, one of the things that people need to realize is that back in the 1990s, we basically let the internet alone. We didn't heavily regulate it. We didn't tax it. And the United States spawned, 6 or 7 of the most amazing companies ever. The United States has totally dominated, as you know, Maria, the technology age and the internet age. Now we're moving into artificial intelligence, and we're moving into robotics. This is the next stage of this. And what Trump is saying, he's absolutely correct here. The the United States is going to lead the way. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we dominate this field, especially against China. And this is another interesting political point. You know, for the last 5 or 6 years, as you know, the Republicans and big tech have been kind of at each other's throat, in part because the big tech companies were deplatforming conservatives and really discriminating against conservatives and Republicans. Now that's been repaired, that relationship. And Trump basically said, we have great companies in Google and Amazon and Apple, and we want to make sure we lead the way. I love this story. If we can, and there's no reason the United States cannot dominate these new industries that are so exciting, you can see on your screen, the way we did at Internet, where we spawned, 7 companies that have, when you look at Tesla, you look at NVIDIA, you look at Microsoft, you look at Amazon, Google, they have a greater net worth than all of the companies combined in Europe. I want to see that continue, and so does Donald Trump.
Yeah, and in fact, all of those companies are reporting earnings next week. And you know what's interesting? You mentioned Europe. The CEO of NVIDIA this week said something so interesting. He said that AI will create more millionaires in 5 years than the internet did in 20.
I mean, a lot of people became millionaires and even billionaires because of this. But remember, 60% of Americans have 401k plans, and they're invested in NVIDIA and they're invested in Amazon and Google and these companies. So everyone's going to be better off in America in terms of their retirement savings if we continue to lead the way in these industries.
Yep. All right. We'll be watching all those tech earnings in the coming week, led by Apple, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, all reporting their quarterly numbers. Steve, good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Maria.
Steve Moore.